Ladies and gentlemen, or whatever stage of chaos you're in right now, welcome. Let's get one thing straight off the bat. Forgiveness doesn't come with a limp removal surgery. You ever meet those people who act like forgiveness is a magic reset button? Like, oh, I said sorry to Jesus or the universe or whatever, so I'm brand new now. Look at me, floating on peace and vibes. Nah, sit down, shut up. Let me tell you something real. Forgiven people still limp. And that's okay. You still got trust issues. Limp. Still flinch when you hear his name. Limp. Still second. Guess yourself every time you feel happy. Big all emotional limp. But here's the catch, that limp is not weakness. It's proof you survived. You ever sprain your ankle and try to act cool walking down the street? You do that little half-step drag like, I'm good, I'm fine. But people who have limped before, they see it. They know you don't gotta explain. That's how pain works. It leaves traces. But forgiveness is what makes sure you don't bleed on everybody else. Look, forgiveness is a choice, not a spell. You might forgive your dad, still get tight in the chest when you see a father playing with his kid. That's the limp. You might forgive your ex, but you still scroll past their story like you're defusing a bomb. That's the limp. You forgive yourself, but you still cringe at 2 a.m. remembering what you did in 2019. Guess what, Limp City, baby? But you're walking. That's the point. You didn't stay down. You didn't let the wound become your personality. You didn't slap a Bible verse or a horoscope quote over your trauma and call it healing. You got up. You limp now, but you got up. Stop letting people guilt you because you don't look fully healed. That's cult behavior. That's Instagram therapy garbage. You're not supposed to erase your past. You're supposed to carry it better. And hear me now. God doesn't use perfect people. He uses limping ones. Because limping people don't forget where they came from. Limping people walk slower, they see more, feel more. Limping people got compassion in their stride. So yeah, you're forgiven, and yeah, you still limp. That's not a contradiction, that's the testimony. Walk funny, walk crooked, walk emotional, but walk honest. And if anybody makes fun of your limp, tell them, yeah, I limp, but at least I'm not still laying in it. People have this strange idea that once you've been forgiven, by God, by someone else, even by yourself, everything should be smooth sailing. Like all the pain should disappear, and suddenly you're smiling in church or therapy or wherever, floating through life like trauma didn't leave skid marks on your soul. But here's the hard truth that nobody puts on Instagram. Forgiveness doesn't erase the limp. It doesn't delete the impact of what happened. It doesn't press some divine undo button and make you brand new like it never went down. That's not how this works. Let's talk real. You might forgive someone who hurt you deep, like shook your whole world kind of hurt, but that doesn't mean you walk away untouched. You still carry the limp. Maybe it's not physical, but it's there. You walk into a new relationship and your guard's a little too high. You pull away when someone gets too close. You overthink simple texts like they're emotional landmines. That's the limp. It's subtle, but it's in your steps. It's in your hesitation. It's in that invisible tension you carry in your chest, even though you said, I've moved on. Because you did move on. You forgave. You made peace. You let go of the poison. But healing doesn't mean amnesia. You still remember. You still feel. You're just choosing not to let it rot your heart anymore. That's huge. That's powerful. But it doesn't mean you don't walk funny sometimes. People expect too much from forgiveness. They want it to fix everything. They want it to remove all the side effects. But that's not how this plays out. Forgiveness isn't some kind of painkiller. It doesn't numb you to the consequences of what you went through. It's not anesthesia. It's just the start of the real work. And if you're the one who messed up, if you're the one who had to forgive yourself, it's even messier. Because sure, you've made peace with what you did. Maybe you've apologized, maybe you've made amends, but deep down, you still flinch when you remember how badly you messed up. You still get that pit in your stomach when someone brings up a topic even remotely close to your old mistake. That's your limp. It shows up when you least expect it, and that's okay. That doesn't mean you're not forgiven. It means you're still human. Forgiveness doesn't erase memory. It rewrites the story, sure, but it doesn't delete the chapters. The limp is part of your story now. It's the scar that says, I got wounded, but I didn't stay down. It's the evidence that you went through the valley and made it out. You're not walking the same because you're not the same. And that's not a bad thing. The limp keeps you humble. It reminds you what you've survived. It gives you compassion for people who are still crawling. It's what makes you look at someone else struggling and go, yeah, I know that pain. Keep going. People who have never limped think everyone should just get over it and bounce back. But you walk with a limp and a memory. You don't rush people. You don't judge their pace. That's what makes you different. So no, forgiveness doesn't erase the limp. It just means the limp doesn't control you anymore. You're still healing. You're still figuring it out. You might cry some nights. You might pull away when things feel too good. You might second guess yourself even though you're not that person anymore. That doesn't mean you're fake. That doesn't mean you're weak. That means you're real, you're forgiven, and you still limp. And that's not a contradiction, that's the most human thing there is. You've been to hell and back, and your walk shows it, but guess what? You're still walking, you're still moving, limp and all, and honestly, I'd trust someone with a limp over someone who's never fallen. Because people with limps, they've been through the fire, they know what grace really costs, they know what pain really teaches, and they walk slower, yeah, but they walk with wisdom. So next time someone looks at you sideways and says, aren't you over that yet? Just smile and keep walking. Because they don't know what it took just to get back on your feet. You ever look at someone and think, man, they've got it all together. They walk tall, head up, confidence radiating off them like heat. No visible cracks, no stutter in their step, no sign they've ever been broken. But let me tell you something real. Those aren't always the strongest people in the room. The strongest ones, the ones you should really watch for. They're the ones with a limp, the ones who don't walk quite the same since what happened, and that limp, that's not weakness. That limp is proof they survived. You know why the limp matters, because it shows you've been somewhere. You've walked through fire. You didn't just read about pain in a book or hear about it in someone else's story. Nah, you lived it. You ate dinner with pain, slept next to regret, and tried to make small talk with shame in the mirror. And yet, you're still here. You're not walking perfect, but you're walking, and the limp is the receipt. It's easy to fake a clean walk. Anybody can throw on a smile and pretend nothing ever hit them. But it takes guts to limp honestly. It takes courage to show up with your wounds not fully closed, to move forward even when your steps are uneven. That's real strength. That's resilience. People think strength is about being unshaken, untouched. But real strength is in the wobble. It's in the stutter step. It's in the way your voice cracks when you tell your story, but you keep telling it anyway. It's in the tears that sneak out when you're trying to be over it. That limp says, I've been through something, I'm not the same, and I'm not ashamed of it. And here's the thing, the limp keeps you grounded. You ever see someone who's never had to struggle, never felt heartbreak, never had to crawl back from their own mistake? They walk too fast, they judge too quick. They've got no patience for people who move slower, who hesitate, who cry. But someone who limps, they get it. They know what it's like to be in the dirt. They know the weight of the world when it's on your chest and you don't know if you'll ever stand again. That kind of knowledge, it doesn't come from books. It comes from breaking and building again. The limp also teaches compassion. You see someone dragging their own pain behind them and you don't laugh, you don't mock, you don't whisper, they should be further along by now. Nah. You walk beside them because you know. You've been there. You're still there in your own way. And you've learned to stop expecting healing to look like perfection. Sometimes healing just means breathing a little easier today than you did yesterday. Sometimes it just means showing up. You know what else the limp does? It protects you. It reminds you not to go back where you were hurt. You might forgive, yeah. You might release the bitterness. But that limp whispers, don't forget what it cost you. That limp keeps you alert. It helps you love smarter, trust slower, move wiser. It's not fear, it's wisdom dressed in memory. So the next time you catch yourself feeling like less because you're not bouncing back fast enough, because you still cry, still doubt, still ache, pause. Look at that limp. That's your testimony. That's your battle scar. That's your reminder that you fought through something people wouldn't have survived. You might not look graceful right now, but you're still going. And that's what counts. And when someone who's never limped tries to give you advice from the mountaintop, smile politely, let them talk, but know this, when life finally hits them, and it will, they'll remember you. The one who limped but didn't stop. The one who stumbled but never stayed down. You'll be the one they run to, because now they need to know how to keep walking with pain. So wear that limp with pride. Don't hide it. Don't apologize for it. Let it remind you of what you've come through, and let it shape the way you carry others. Because that limp, that's not weakness. That's proof you survived what was meant to break you. And you're still here, still walking, still living. That's power. Forgiveness is not magic. It's not some spiritual snap of the fingers that makes everything clean and fixed. It's not a spell you cast or a button you press and suddenly the pain is gone, the memory fades, and everything feels whole again. That's the fairy tale version people like to sell, especially in places that sound good but rarely get deep. In real life, forgiveness is a choice. It's raw, it's gritty, it's personal, and more than anything, it's messy. You don't just forgive once and feel better forever. It's not a one and done deal. Sometimes forgiveness is a decision you have to make every single morning. Sometimes multiple times a day, because just when you think it's gone, boom, something reminds you, a song, a scent, a place, a name, and suddenly that old wound flares up again like it never left. That's when you learn real quick that forgiveness isn't about pretending it didn't happen. It's about deciding not to carry the weight of it every time it shows up. And let's be clear, forgiveness doesn't equal instant peace. It doesn't mean your heart's not racing when you think about what they did. It doesn't mean your anxiety isn't triggered by something you can't even explain. Forgiveness just means you've decided to stop letting what happened control you. That's it. It's a choice to stop rehearsing the revenge fantasy. Choice to stop waiting for an apology that might never come. A choice to stop poisoning your own spirit just because someone else infected your past. It doesn't mean justice was served. It doesn't mean they deserve to be let off the hook. It means you deserve to be free, free from the loop, from the bitterness, from the storm that keeps replaying in your head like a broken track. You're not saying what happened was okay. You're saying you won't let it define you anymore. That's the real power in forgiveness. Not in forgetting, not in pretending it didn't leave bruises, but in standing up, looking the pain in the eye, and saying, you don't get to live here anymore. People misunderstand this all the time. They think forgiveness should bring some big emotional transformation, like angels should sing and your heart should suddenly be light as a feather. But sometimes after you forgive, you still feel angry. You still feel broken. You still feel triggered. That's normal. That's human. Forgiveness doesn't change your feelings overnight. It changes your direction. It's a pivot. It says, yeah, this hurt me, but I'm choosing to walk a different way now. And guess what? Sometimes you forgive someone and they never know it. They never say thank you. They never apologize. They never change. That doesn't make your forgiveness less real, because forgiveness isn't for them. It's for you. It's not about letting them off the hook. It's about cutting the rope that's been tied around your neck while they sleep peacefully at night. It's about reclaiming your time, your energy, your power. Same goes for forgiving yourself. That's a whole different battlefield. You might know in your head that you're forgiven. You might believe you've grown, but the shame whispers louder than truth sometimes. It makes you question if you're really changed, if you really deserve good things now. That's why forgiveness is a daily choice, a constant battle to remind yourself that who you were is not who you are now. You might limp from it, sure. You might carry that memory like a scar on your spirit, but you're choosing not to let it own you anymore. That's what matters. So no, forgiveness isn't a cure. It's not an emotional fix-it-all. It doesn't guarantee peace or clarity or instant joy, but it does give you the freedom to move forward, limping, maybe, crying, probably, but forward, always forward. That's the real win, not forgetting. Not pretending, but choosing to live even with the limp, choosing to heal even with the cracks, choosing to forgive, not because it erases the past, but because it opens the door to a future where the past doesn't hold the keys. So forgive, not because it fixes everything, but because it finally lets you breathe again, and that breath, that freedom, that decision, that's not weakness, that's power. People have this twisted expectation that once you've forgiven someone, or once you've started healing, you're supposed to look the part. Like you should be glowing with inner peace, posting deep captions with sunrise pictures, and telling everyone how strong you feel. And if you're not, if you're still struggling, if you still cry in your car, if your voice still shakes when you talk about it, then people start asking questions. Wait, I thought you were over that. Nah. Healing doesn't mean you have to look healed. That's not how this works. This idea that healing has to be pretty is one of the biggest lies going around. Somewhere along the way, we turned healing into a performance. We made it about image. We turned it into something to prove to others instead of something we walk through for ourselves. So people end up faking it. They smile through gritted teeth. They post about how blessed they feel while barely holding it together behind closed doors. They go silent about the hard stuff because they're afraid of being judged for not being over it yet. But healing is messy, it's uneven, it's up and down and sideways, it's crying at random. It's snapping when you didn't mean to. It's over-explaining yourself in conversations because deep down, you're still scared people won't understand you. It's having good days followed by days that hit like a truck. That's not failure, that's part of it. That's what growth really looks like. You don't owe anyone a polished version of your process. You don't have to wear your progress like a costume to make other people comfortable. You can be honest, you can limp, you can stutter through the explanation. You can be both forgiven and still figuring it out. That's real healing. That's real strength. Sometimes you'll have days where everything feels fine. You'll laugh, you'll feel light, you'll even start to believe you've finally turned a corner. And then out of nowhere, something small pulls you back, a memory, a voice, a smell, and suddenly you're back in it like no time has passed. That's not failure, that's not regression, that's your soul saying, hey, we're still untangling this, give us time. There's no straight line to healing, there's no after picture where everything's clean. And the truth is, most of your healing will happen when no one is clapping for you. No one's cheering you on. No one even sees it. It's in the moments when you choose not to text back, when you walk away instead of trying to prove your point. When you stay kind, even though you're bitter inside, that's the deep work. That's the stuff that matters. And listen, don't let other people's timelines become your measuring stick. Some folks move fast. They forgive and they're smiling the next day. Good for them, but that's not your path. You might need more time. You might need to process deeper. You might need to cry more. That doesn't make you weak. That makes you honest. That makes you self-aware. And that kind of healing, that's the kind that actually sticks. People love a quick comeback story. They want to see the before and after transformation, the glow up, the miracle. But what about the in-between? What about the nights you just laid there, praying for peace but feeling nothing? What about the mornings you got up, made coffee, and chose to keep going even though everything inside you felt stuck? That's the part people don't post, but that's where the real healing is. You don't need to look healed, you just need to keep showing up. Keep choosing to walk forward even if it's slow, even if it's ugly, even if no one understands your pace. Because healing isn't for the crowd. It's for you. It's for your freedom. It's for your peace. So let them think what they want. Let them misunderstand. Let them whisper. You just keep walking. You just keep choosing your process. Limp if you have to. Sit down if you need to. But don't fake it for anyone else. You don't have to look healed to be healing. You don't have to smile to be strong. You just have to be real. And that's more powerful than any highlight reel version of recovery they'll ever see. There's this quiet pressure in the air that says once you've been forgiven, once you've moved on or been given grace, you need to be grateful enough to shut up about the pain. Like you've been forgiven, why are you still talking about it? Or worse, why are you still feeling it? That pressure is real, it's subtle, but it's there. It makes people shrink. It makes them mute the parts of their story that still sting. But here's the truth nobody says out loud. You can be forgiven and still feel the pain. You can be thankful for grace and still have questions. You can honor your growth and still admit, this still hurts sometimes. That doesn't make you ungrateful. That makes you human. Forgiveness doesn't wipe out the impact. It doesn't always fix the mess. And it definitely doesn't come with some automatic healing package that clears your mind and restores your heart instantly. You don't just walk out of the rubble like nothing fell apart. Sometimes you're walking through the ruins still figuring out what to rebuild and what to leave behind, and guess what? Even after forgiveness enters the scene, whether it's from someone else or from yourself, the cleanup doesn't end there, the ache lingers, the emotional limp sticks around, and that's okay. You're allowed to say, yes, I've been forgiven, and also, yes, I'm still healing. Those two things aren't in conflict. They're walking hand in hand, actually. The fact that you were forgiven doesn't erase what you lost. It doesn't mean what happened didn't cost you something. It just means you're no longer holding yourself hostage to it. But people will act like your pain should be gone just because the apology showed up. They'll say things like, aren't you past this? Or you should be thankful that you were given another chance, and you are thankful. You do appreciate grace. You do feel the weight of the mercy you were shown, but you're also still sitting with the reality of what happened. You're also still walking out of the wreckage, and you have every right to feel both, gratitude and grief. See, we've romanticized forgiveness. We've turned it into this shiny, polished thing that's supposed to instantly fix all the ugly. But forgiveness isn't cute. It's not clean. It doesn't erase the flashbacks. It doesn't stop the internal dialogue. It doesn't stop the late-night what-ifs and why did I do that? It just offers you the key to step out of the prison, but walking out, that part's on you, and it takes time. It takes stumbling, it takes facing mirrors you'd rather avoid, it takes learning to live in the tension between I'm not who I was, and I'm still not who I want to be. That's the thing nobody talks about. After forgiveness, you still have to deal with the damage. The consequences don't just pack up and leave because you got forgiven. They don't respect your timeline. Sometimes the people around you forgive you, but the version of you that made the mistake, that version still haunts you, and you have to learn how to walk alongside that ghost without letting it steer the wheel. You might still wake up with regret. You might still avoid certain conversations. You might still be relearning how to trust yourself, how to hold your own heart again without squeezing it too tight or dropping it altogether. And you might feel guilty for still feeling all this after being given grace. But that guilt, that's unnecessary weight. Forgiveness didn't come with the expectation that you'd forget everything. It came to help you breathe again, not to force you to pretend it never happened. So don't silence your limp just because someone told you you should be walking taller by now. Don't downplay your process to make someone else more comfortable with your pain. You're allowed to feel it. You're allowed to revisit it. You're allowed to sit in it, even after grace has already been spoken over your story. Because the truth is, some of the most beautiful stories come from people who were forgiven but still honest about the limp. People who didn't fake recovery. People who didn't pretend they were okay just because they were no longer condemned. That kind of honesty, that's healing, that's power, that's where freedom lives. Not in pretending the wound is gone, but in owning it and walking anyway. There's this belief that once you've made it through something, once you've been forgiven, once you've survived, once you've gotten back up, you're supposed to come out the other side stronger, wiser, tougher, and ready to help everybody else. Like your pain was a training camp for mentorship, like your suffering came with a contract to now be the emotionally stable tour guide for others, and yeah, maybe one day you'll speak into somebody else's storm. Maybe one day you'll be the shoulder someone leans on, but let's be real, just because you've been through it doesn't mean you've fully figured it out. Just because you've been forgiven doesn't mean you owe anyone the polished version of healing. You're allowed to still be working through it, even if others look at you like you're supposed to have all the answers. There's pressure to be a role model once people know your story. Pressure to turn your limp into a lesson plan. To turn your wounds into wisdom before they've even had time to close. And the wild part is, sometimes that pressure doesn't come from outside. It comes from inside. It's you telling yourself, I shouldn't feel like this anymore. I already got through the worst of it. It's you trying to fast forward your growth so that you can be who people expect you to be. But the truth, growth doesn't always come with clarity. Sometimes you grow while still being confused. Sometimes you forgive while still feeling angry. Sometimes you move forward without knowing where the road is going. That doesn't make your journey any less real. It just means you're still in it. You're not the final version of yourself yet, and honestly, you never will be. None of us are. You don't owe anyone a leadership position in your pain. You don't have to turn your limp into a sermon. Sometimes, your only job is to keep walking, to keep breathing, to keep getting up. That's enough. That's more than enough. And if someone looks at you and says, you should be stronger by now, just know that says more about their discomfort with your pain than it does about your progress. People love a comeback story, but they don't always want to stick around for the part where you're still figuring out how to live differently. They want the highlight reel, the look how far I've come version. But the truth is, most days aren't like that. Most days it's quiet wins. It's keeping your cool when something triggers you. It's reaching out when you want to isolate. It's choosing not to spiral. It's fighting to believe you're still worthy of love and joy and softness even though you've limped through hell. You don't owe people your strength. You don't owe them inspiration. You don't have to be a warrior every day. Some days you're just tired. Some days you're just trying to not fall apart. And that doesn't mean you're failing. That means you're being honest. There's also this idea that once you've grown, you're done with the parts of you that used to be messy. Like there's a clean break between who you were and who you are now. But it doesn't work like that. The old you doesn't disappear. Sometimes they show up uninvited in your fears, in your relationships, in how you react. And when they do, you don't need to panic. You don't need to pretend they're not there. You just need to remind yourself that growth isn't about erasing your past. It's about knowing how to carry it without letting it define your next step. So if you're still limping, still learning, still healing out loud, good. That's real. That's raw. That's what people need to see more of. Not perfect people who pretend they're over everything, but honest people who admit, yeah, I'm still working through it. But I'm not who I was, and I'm not giving up. You're allowed to be unfinished. You're allowed to not have it all figured out. You're allowed to tell your story from the middle, not just the end, because the middle is where most of us are living anyway, and in that middle space, where we limp, where we question, where we try again, that's where real strength lies. Not in the appearance of perfection, but in the commitment to keep going anyway. So don't rush to be the healed version of yourself. Don't skip the part where you're still tender. still triggered, still building. That version of you, the one who limps but keeps showing up, that's someone worth respecting. That's someone who's doing the real work, and that's more than enough. So yeah, maybe we limp. Maybe we walk with a little more caution now. Maybe some days we laugh with a crack in our voice. Maybe some mornings we wake up strong and by the evening we're just trying to hold it together. Maybe the past still echoes even when we don't want it to. But you know what? We're still walking, still getting up, still breathing, still choosing grace even when it's hard, still showing up to life with shaky hands and tired hearts. That limp, that's not weakness. That's proof that you made it. Proof that the storm didn't win. Proof that even when it hurt, you didn't quit. Forgiven people still limp, and that's okay, because we're not here to impress anybody. We're not here to perform some perfect version of healing. We're here to live, limping, laughing, stumbling, loving, forgiving, learning, and maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what wholeness looks like. Keep walking.